This is going to be the Tamron 50-400mm f4.5 to 6.3 Di3 VC VXD for Sony mirrorless. I can see you getting it prepped and ready. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, this is a beautiful lens. I teased it just a second ago. This is a 50-400. So you're getting tons of range with this lens. Obviously, 20-40, a little bit lighter. This one's a little bit longer, a little bit, bulkier and heavier. But if you were to take just the 20-40 and then the 50-400, if you think about that range, if you just use these two lenses in your bag, you're getting a range from 20 millimeters all the way up to 400 millimeters, which is kind of like a dream package in two lenses by themselves. A lot of times photographers will take a 24-70 and then a 70-200 and then a 200-400 and then a 600 prime. And by that time, if you're doing a lot of hiking, if you're going on an airplane or something, you're carrying like 60 pounds of camera gear on your back. And it's insane. If you were just to take these two lenses, you're getting that range of 20-400 in just two small packages. And if you just hold these side by side, you can see the comparison in size there. And a range of 50-400 in a lens this small is pretty incredible when you think about it. So this is an external zoom lens, meaning that all of the zoom is going to come out of the lens as you zoom. So this is it all the way to 400, and this is zoomed out all the way to 50 millimeters. Again, I put it on my Sony so you could see like how big this is actually going to be. Not big at all when you think about how much reach you're getting with this lens. Now, a couple of things that I love about these, I talked about how smooth the zoom ring and the focus ring are on Tamron lenses. But what I love about these bigger zoom lenses from Tamron is that you get some custom buttons that you can actually use for your photography and set those to what you want them to be. You also have some stabilization in here. You have a button right here that can be customized. I use it for focusing sometimes if I'm doing some auto focusing. My favorite feature, though, is kind of like when I go out to shoot, a lot of times I'll slip, make a mistake, and accidentally bump my focus a little bit in. What I love about these is they actually have a lock in here to where if I want to shoot at, let's say, like 135 millimeters right here, if I just flip this lock and turn that on, it easily locks in place. Or if I wanted it on 50 millimeters, I could lock that in place there too. So what this is great for is in your bag, if you want it locked at the smallest size possible, you can lock it in there, or you can lock it in at other areas too. Now, I mentioned how good these are in weather, great weatherproofing on these. And I love how good the glass is in Tamron. You have a lot of pieces of glass in here, which what makes it a little bit heavier since you're getting a lot more zoom in this. I wanted to compare it real quick. I have my Tamron lens. I have a 150-500 here. So a little bit difference in a lens. If you're dealing with a 50-400 versus a 150-500, you're saving a ton of size by going with this lens because this is bulky and very heavy. And then comparing the 20-40 with a 17-28, you're actually getting more zoom in a smaller package and keeping that f2.8. So this is 17-28, and this is the 20-40, and you're getting more range out of this one. So I love Tamron in the fact that they're giving you tons of zoom, tons of areas to work with, and you could easily use, let me unlock it. You could easily use this for a safari and have this on your camera the entire time because you are getting up to 400 millimeters. You could use this for other wildlife capabilities. And I like to use big zooms. I know I've used 70-200 in the past a lot to capture landscapes. But what I've found as I've progressed in my photography career is I've gone more towards the 100 to 400 range when I'm taking landscapes. That is because you're taking different parts of the landscape that you could shoot with a wide angle lens and get that big view. But then you could take something like a 100-400, or in this case, a 50-400, getting a little bit extra range in that and capturing smaller little parts of the landscape when you're going out to take photos. So that's why I love lenses like this that give you tons of range and tons of wiggle room. Now, comparing it to something like a 400mm prime or a 600mm prime, those lenses are going to be about out to here. Massive lenses that you take on your camera and extremely heavy. I did take one of those lenses with me to Kenya when we did go with Outdoor Photography Guide, and it was a haul getting it on the airplane, through customs, taking it with me every single day. It was a beast, but I kind of wish I would have had, definitely wish I would have had this camera or this lens, because it probably would have stayed on my camera pretty much 95% of the time in a situation like that. So this is a phenomenal one to use. You can do it for adventure photography, capturing people in your images to create scale. So many uses for this lens, and I definitely think it's worth to have in your camera bag. So I love, love, love this lens.
We actually just had two questions roll in, one right after the other. They're very related. So I'm going to ask David if you could talk about both of the Tamron lenses that you've just featured. Joe and also Rebecca are curious to know if they can be fitted to a Nikon, if you can get this for any brand camera. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So these two specifically are just for Sony lenses or Sony cameras, the mirrorless cameras from Sony. So those are going to be E-mount cameras. But if you go on the Tamron website, they a lot of times have comparable lens ranges for these for those camera makes. These two specifically are just for Sony's, but they do make very comparable lenses when we're talking about Canon, Nikon, a lot of those other camera companies that you may have in your camera bag that you're using. So when we're talking about lenses like this, the mirrorless lenses specifically are typically a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter weight than your DSLR lenses, but you can get comparable sizes and ranges with those on the Tamron website. So I definitely go on there and check out what they have available for any camera that you might own. But these two specifically are just for Sony E-mount mirrorless cameras.
Okay. And then Nick has a question about your camera. Nick wants to know, what is the tool that is attached to the bottom of your camera that we're seeing?
Oh, yeah, this is a fun one. So this little tool saves me so much time. It's called an L bracket. So what I do is just attach this to my camera, and I keep it on there all the time. I've arranged it so I can get my battery out and also access the side panel on here. And it just allows me to easily, it's got a Swiss Arca plate on the bottom, so I can attach it to my tripod like this, and then easily just switch it and attach it like this too. So it just saves me a ton of time. They're really cheap to find on any website, so you can pick those up. But it's called an L bracket, and really great, especially for landscape photography.